sometimes too. All right. Well, I can go ahead and call the meeting to order. And since we've done a written roll call, that should be good. And we're joined today by a guest, and so I'll make a move to amend the agenda. But did you want to introduce yourself to us?
Yeah, my name is actually Adrian Thomas, but I go by Kahari Mkola.
Okay.
And what was the other organization?
Actually, the Bloomington Police Department, or just the police in general here in the city of Bloomington. Turn on your lights. If you're going to sit there, might as well have your lights on so we can see you when we need you.
Yeah. Nice. Cool. So welcome.
Thank you.
And so the next item is the approval of the agenda and approval of the minutes. So I want to amend the agenda to respect the guest who reached out to us ahead of time, because I think that he has good information to share with us. Yeah, awesome. So we can go ahead after the reports. I'll amend to add that to the first item, so we can make that A and move everything down in new business. Okay. Any other amendments that people want to make? Okay. And that should, the next items to follow are the important ones, amending our bylaws and such. Cool. So do we want to do a voice vote for approving that agenda? Yeah, let's go.
Aye.
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 And Cammie?
Aye.
And I approve as well. All right. So now reports. Co-chairs, which is just me. So we didn't have an official meeting last time. We weren't able to conduct business, but now that we're down, now that Jenna has been officially removed from the commission, our in-person quorum is 4, which we met today. So that should be good moving forward. There was suggestion to talk about attendance. I'll say softly that we are public servants, right? So like life comes first. So when you were going to have to miss for work, I was like, that's a legitimate reason, right? But I think previous to, I'm the only one from, well, Cammie is representing as well, but previous to all of you joining, we passed something to try to make it equitable, to put something in where officially you're not supposed to miss 2 in a row, but of course if something comes up then we can make exceptions, but just to encourage meeting quorum. So we've done that. The other thing I wanted to touch on was kind of rethinking, and it's later on the agenda, but just rethinking how we want to do the work that we're doing. When I first joined, we had a couple different committees, like on reparations, mediation, and research or outreach, and then we've condensed them as the work we've done changes. We don't officially need to have a committee to do the work, but if we're working on a project, that it would be beneficial to separate that to a committee and then bring it back here. So we can talk about that later on the agenda. I think that's all. So now we can move to individual members. Does anybody have anything that you want to report individually that you've been paying attention to?
Oh,
And that could be the Stride.
the Stride?
Yeah.
So we got a date
Okay.
to take a tour of the
Oh,
Stride,
wonderful.
which is across the street, January 9th at 4 p.m.
Okay.
Okay.
What day of the week is
Hope you
that?
can I'll make it. It's a Thursday,
Okay.
so it's the same time as this day and time as this meeting, but not on a date that we would be meeting here.
Stride.
I will be there.
Oh,
Yeah,
super.
me too.
It would be great for you, Erin, because I'm sure you'll be able to think of things that we wouldn't think of. You'll
I
have good
hope so.
questions.
Cool.
Yeah.
Just the Environmental Resilience Institute is meeting in February, have kind of a conference thing at the convention center. I'm on the Commission on Sustainability, and I'm always looking for the intersection of environment and how building in resiliency environmentally and economically is really kind of the same thing, especially as the disasters impact certain communities worse. I haven't received a notice like I have in the past about whether there's still an opening to where possibly we could get in for some kind of a presentation or anything. They may already have that kind of determined, but it is like February 28th is when it's occurring, and I'm going to be attending.
And
but
that's
I
at the conference center.
At the convention center, yeah.
Convention center down the street.
And that's the Environmental Resiliency Institute. I think it's Indiana Sustainability, ISRC is what Resiliency Conference, something to that effect.
What time is that?
I think it's kind of an all-day
All day. Okay.
thing, you know, there's breakout sessions and plenary, and but I think it's kind of the neglected sector in a lot of the environmental and resilience stuff is really kind of getting to the brass tacks of impacts in certain neighborhoods and how just a few measures could make all the difference on how well things are, withstood.
Right.
And I think the more local autonomy you can build in, that's less cost of living that has to be farmed in, So I think it's really kind of a way to get to a lot of the solutions. It's my thing with the housing situation is that if your house is generating your electricity, if you're catching your water, if you're growing your food there, that's already, reducing utility bills and food costs, improving health, and also if it was built with like earth that like controls the mold situation, there's all these, off-gassing that's not happening and impacting health, which is, all these things that are disproportionate on the bottom. If you built it that way in the lower sector of the economy, then in a way it'd be like an inverse keeping up with the Joneses. Like, wait a minute, you're not paying any utilities? No, we actually have extra and we share it with the neighbors. A total way of inverting the whole kind of dog-eat-dog system into superabundance by just a slight shift. It's not really that big of a difference. But like, if you feed the fish, they poop, their water goes to the plants. You could have a housing situation where somebody is harvesting and canning what we're growing on site, and they're earning their keep. And here's your key, and here's your unit.
So
I won't go much further into that, but that to me is a kind of intersectional way of addressing a lot of these issues that builds in an autonomy for that person or that family that isn't dependent on grants or the system so much, because that politically can get cut off.
Yeah. So definitely something to keep on our radar. Thanks for sharing that.
I don't know if anyone from co-op housing is gonna be there, but that sounds kind of like.
Yeah, that's still kind of a certain niche. It's still kind of a student housing the way it's structured right now.
Is it really?
Because like you can't go in there with a Section 8 voucher into a cooperative house, and they screen everybody. Like everybody in the house gets to screen the applicant. So that's not exactly.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
I mean, parts of that model certainly should be part of it, but as it's done now, it's still got a ways to go to me to be
Yeah.
Okay.
All good things.
Good to know.
really accessible.
No reports.
Okay. Awesome. So the research committee hasn't been meeting. I'll touch on that again later. Staff report. Nicole, do you have anything? Yeah. Good. That's good news.
Your staff report is, your staff misses you tonight.
Ah.
I don't know if that's true, but it sounds really good.
Yeah, it does.
I'll take it. I'm sure they're gonna watch the recording again.
And public comment. We've added a specific place for your report, and you're the only person from public. So I guess we could move to that now. Would you like to speak or give a presentation?
Yeah, I've got something here.
Hey, you wanna,
Okay.
go ahead, come on.
And yeah, you're
Yeah.
welcome to the table.
Coming up.
Or anywhere.
Jason, did we actually read one more individual report?
Oh, Cammie, did you have a report to give?
I do not.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
No, sorry about that.
Thank you.
We have gift baskets here, and we'll have to mail yours to you.
All right.
Okay.
My name is Adrian Thomas. This will start off with Turn On the Lights and BHA. My name is Adrian Thomas, but you can call me Kahadi Mkola. I've spoken on this topic before, and now I speak again. We need to see you. From Indiana State Police to right here in our hometown, Bloomington, Indiana. I don't know what all you guys got. But as some of these photos will show, it is hard to see right away where your help is. I mean, why go all black? Can you answer the community as to how that will benefit the younger kids that are coming up? How can we teach our kids what a cop car looks like when we as adults have a hard time distinguishing them from any other vehicle? We need to see you. The Bloomington Police Department sits at the corner of 11th and Adams in the church parking lot at night, waiting for maybe someone to run the stop sign, which is great, making sure our kids are safe. But if you're sitting there, why not have your lights on? Why? Not only will the residents of the community be able to see you, but it'll also help the residents think twice before running that stop sign. Remember IU students and how IU Police Department rides with their lights on. Now, the student safety is just as important as the ones that are here when they are gone. Turn on your lights. And the second portion is considering the BHA community, BHA Housing Authority, Bloomington Housing Authority. Once again, I've spoken on this topic. I'm bringing this out there because there was a mass email sent out by BHA about picking up poop for the incoming contractors. Now, not only did you just send out my personal information / email to the entire community, but now these people are emailing me because I chose to speak out about how we would love to pick up the poop, but the trash cans are full of poop and there are no bags to be found. And after I spoke with maintenance 2 to 3 weeks prior, who referred me to the office to follow the process, which I do, and still, a week later, nothing, and now you send this. People are now saying things to me that I don't like and will leave it there. Granted, the very next day, every container and trash bag was filled and corrected. Other residents are actually now responding in agreement to this mass email that has now gone out. And they're also tired of the mistreatment. And if I could, not that I am speaking for everyone, I do speak for myself, but one resident spoke up saying that if their rent adjustment wasn't done, which they submitted 3 to 4 months prior, was not completed, that they would soon have big issues financially for their family and their home income. While others are saying, don't be so mean. Now me, the remedies that I would like to see at the end of all of this is BPD, Bloomington Police Department, Monroe County Sheriff, Indiana State Police. If you are here to serve us, turn on your lights so we can see you. Bloomington Housing Authority, class action lawsuit and internal investigation, especially with the recent release of the former lead director, Kate Gooseman, who was the one that racially discriminated against myself. I'm looking for a class action lawsuit to be filed against BHA on the grounds of discriminatory practices which violate federal law and on the grounds of material and substantial breach of contract. Now, this law that I'm reading, according to the Indiana Court of Appeals, 17 AM, Jurisdiction 2, Contract Law, Section 365, 1964, with case law Lacochi versus Cardinal, first breach doctrine to back it up of 1920. They have violated many lease violations and still do. And in many cases, such as mine, they were the first to breach in a substantial way. And so I would request a formal investigation of all their affairs to make sure they are in order and the class action lawsuit be looked into. Thank you very much. Kahadi Mkola.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And is that anything you're exploring with Indiana Legal Services? Or?
Actually, I currently have a lawsuit against them for my discriminational case that I have. When the director said to me, after I told her I had received discrimination, her words out of her mouth were, "You should be used to that by now, since you've lived that way your whole life." I said, "You got to be kidding me." I got her on recording, so there's no way around it. But, well, I didn't say that it was a question. I said whether it was a statement or a question, it doesn't fit, and it should not have come out of your mouth.
Yeah.
So I dealt with enough, and I said, that's enough. I'm going to speak for myself, and if that means for everybody else as well, then that's what it means.
So you have a private attorney on that? Or?
Actually, the city.
Oh, good.
Yep.
There can also be you can be both a plaintiff and a personal
Well,
lawsuit.
that was
and
my
class
next
action.
email to Michael Sharmus.
Yeah.
That's my next email to him because residents are wanting to get in on that because
Yeah.
it's like class act because they have so many issues. It's not just me, it's really true
systemic.
issues. It's exactly. And it's been pretty bad.
The mass email situations would seemingly be a HIPAA violation.
Well, I thought that as well, and I looked into it online, did my little research, and okay, if that's not a violation, no big deal, but the violation now is that everybody now can access my email, which my Cash App is tied to, and all of these other personal informations that you can now reach out to. You're gonna send out a mass email, you're gonna send out an individual letter later saying, oh, we apologize. Why couldn't you have done that in the beginning?
Yeah,
You were
that's-
lazy
that's
and you did not want to do
divulging
your job.
personal information
Mm-hmm.
that is
Sounds like-
supposed
And it's
to be
not just me, it's the
within-
entire community, and everybody was pretty upset about it.
Yeah.
And they were voicing it. There was going back and forth, and they said, could you guys please stop? I said, listen, you started it. I'm going to speak my mouth. You gave everybody a platform. You could have chosen to send this email with no reply or whatever the case may be. But, well, we're overwhelmed. And one of the residents said, well, if you're overwhelmed, then it sounds like you don't need to be in that position. These are the residents speaking out. They're tired.
Right.
They've been through a lot. One lady's really afraid she's going to lose her I won't give out too much information, but her funds to be able to provide for her family food-wise.
Would you mind giving us a little background?
Absolutely.
I'm not
It started
sure,
with
like-
one resident, and she's okay with me giving her name, so I'll present it before you now, Tiana Baker. They're currently trying to evict her on a false lease. Long story short, I was there one day when they were trying to remove items from her porch while other people had things there that were not her
So
color.
wait a minute, is this a property owned by
Right up there on
Bloom-
1000 North Summit, Bloomington
by
Housing Authority.
Bloomington?
Crestmont
Crestmont,
Projects is
yeah.
under the Bloomington Housing Authority.
I see, it's not privately owned.
Public housing.
Yeah,
Okay,
public housing.
okay.
So it started with
What
her.
happened with-
I intervened. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask what happened with Miss
Yeah, it started with her. Something happened. I was there. I witnessed it. I was putting my 2 cents in. Yeah, exactly right. You shouldn't get on her case if she's black. You shouldn't get on her case when you got 2 other non-black residents right next to her with big grills and trash cans that you are not removing. And you're bringing a tractor out here to remove her. You're embarrassing her. So she's upset, and I'm upset with her. So they don't like me from that moment on. I finally move in. Well, my dog doesn't have his shots, so forth and so on. Okay, no problem. But there's dogs around here with kahunas bigger than some men. And I'm thinking, what about this guy? Of course, the color isn't the same. The problem, things go on, things go on. Residents are now fixing your tires while they get to have their scooters on their back porch. Are you serious? So it goes on and on and on. So I said, okay, enough. I want a meeting because you want to evict me over $3 late on rent. You literally send me a letter that says official termination of your lease. I said, could you not word that a little bit different? I said, you got a bunch of residents up here. Well, we'll look into it. Long story short, we had the meeting over the $3 of rent. Go through the financials. They admit, well, yeah, from the beginning, we did have your financials messed up from the very beginning. So from the very onset that I got here, you're admitting on recording that you messed up my financials from the very beginning. Yeah, okay, we'll try to fix it. Okay, let's go down the story. Go down the line. Tell her, hey, your assistant cursed towards me, said some discriminatory things, said, you're just like Miss Baker. Called me on the phone. I was talking to her on the phone about my dog, and she said, you're just like Miss Baker. How are you going to reference me and another resident, who are both obviously black? How are you going to say this about us? That started it. I complained to Kate, to the boss lady, the supervisor, and that was the one that ended up saying, yeah, she's stupid. She actually said it. Oh, she was stupid for that. But then turns right around and says, but you should be used to that. I'm sure you've experienced that your whole life. And that was the last straw for me.
Right.
And a brief story from February, even before then when I was working there for our company, through my company, working there all the way up through till now.
Thanks for sharing that with
Absolutely.
us. I think those are these are 2 could be ambitious research projects for us
Yes,
to look
please.
into, because we all know that there are systemic issues, but to have some empirical data to back up what we all know is, I think, one of our missions, is to implement evidence-based practices to promote public safety, and we can't have evidence without empirical data. And so I think it's something that we should look into, either doing ourselves or outreach with IU students, because I'm sure there's a lot working on their dissertations somewhere that need a good
Absolutely.
idea,
And
and they
residents-
can be
sorry,
boots
go
on
ahead.
the ground for research efforts and can collaborate and share resources, and I don't know. Thanks.
Yeah, there's
really.
a law school over here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you for coming and sharing.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
And the first issue is police cars are sitting around.
Say it one more time.
Without their lights on.
The first issue about the
Oh,
police
yes, about the police cars.
the-
For example, like I said, on 11th and Adam, they'll sit there. Most of them are all black now.
Yeah.
Some of them are all blacks, but the way they did it strategically was black in the back, black in the front. When you're behind them or they're behind you, you can't see who that is. Small, slim light bar on the top, disguisable, no problem. All right, now we need you to just at least turn those 2 red and blue lights on so we can at least see you as you're parked there at night. If an old man, both my daughters are driving now. So you need to have your lights on as they drive around. If they're gonna need some help, they're gonna need somebody, they're gonna need to know that you're there, not just to wait for a ticket.
Well, and I can speak where I live in particularly, there can be officers that are in the alley, and I will walk past my window, because my house faces this alley over on Wiley Street, and like, I'll kind of get startled by somebody's just kind of parked there.
Well, they
at
do it on
light. So-
purpose. They're
Mhm.
not there to help anyone. They're
Right.
there, you know, that,
So
we
it
can tell
is-
them to turn their lights on, they're gonna, you know.
Yeah.
But
They
I mean,
have
if they
to
at least drive
distract
around with
you.
those 2 lights on, and as it would be as customary, just as IU does, if IU's doing it for their students, why are we any less? Why are we any different? How are we any different as the people that are here when they're gone? So if you care that much about them, what about the people that are actually here now, still paying your taxes still paying your dollars while you work? So I'm gonna need you to turn those lights on.
So obviously, there's 2 different reasons there why the IU police will have their lights on so people can see them, but
Mhm.
Bloomington police.
Right, we're gonna
don't.
hide from it. We don't need you to see.
What?
What do you mean?
Well, it's a lurking situation.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's-
One of them is like
it's money
paid
grabbing.
explicitly to help kids, and the other one is centuries long force to hurt people systemically. So.
You got your community service specialist vehicles, white and black,
Right.
mainly white going through. All these white vehicles during the daytime. Where are those during the nighttime? They're not. They're all blacked out.
Right.
All blacked out. Like, as you see in these pictures here, you can't tell. There's 3 actually in this picture here. And that guy, you couldn't even tell he was there until I blew it up. And this is right out in front of your building. What if y'all needed help? You're walking outside. You have no idea where he's at. No idea. 3 of them in there. And if
Yeah,
I'm
that-
standing there, this
It
is
used
from
to
me
be
standing there.
That used to be the whole thing with the black and whites, is to make them stand out.
Yeah, but the problem is they're not going to turn on the lights to send beacons, like, hey, we're here to help,
Mhm.
because they don't have to help us.
Right.
You could be
exactly.
choking on the sidewalk and they'll step over you,
Mhm.
because there's that's,
Mhm.
protect and serve is just a slogan, it's not their actual mission.
Right.
So,
Right.
I think it's I think it's an ambitious and noble goal for us to have,
Mhm.
but it's gonna start a lot deeper. I think turn on the lights is a good slogan,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
gonna have to start with, like, if they're our public service, we have to go to our legislature and we
Mhm.
have to say, we need to enact something that tells them they have to protect and serve.
Well, that
Because
might-
right now, they don't have to.
That
Mhm.
might be something that could come under the mayor's office as a policy.
I went up to
Right,
the
as
mayor's
from the
office.
executive. Absolutely,
Oh,
either
yeah.
one.
I went there and
And-
submitted this to them.
And approaching it from what, IU's policy
Yeah.
may be on campus could be a good vector for that
Yeah, I
as
like
well,
that.
approaching it from there.
And another opportunity for us is I've heard both Chief Decoff and Oldham talk about how their primary goal is to uphold the Constitution, right? And the
Right.
Constitution is supposed to keep us safe. It's not about criminalizing. It
Mhm.
is about, turning on lights,
Absolutely.
being
Absolutely.
beacons,
Now, that's gonna hurt them ticket-wise, but at the end of the day, it's what it is.
right?
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's gonna hurt you ticket-wise, because we're gonna see you. Nobody's gonna we're gonna see you.
Right.
We are going to see you. Your tickets are going to go down. Oh, here comes a cop, guys. You see him a mile down the road?
And there you go, you've got your traffic calming.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Deterrent.
So no, I know where you're going, but I will not stand down. You will turn on your lights, one way or another.
Yeah.
I don't care how high I got to go, I will speak, and you will turn on your lights. So that's the end for me.
Yeah.
Thank you guys very much for
And
hearing.
so,
I appreciate
have
your
you
input,
gone
too.
through some kind of a tenant association or anything there?
Man, I started in the last meeting with this lovely lady. That was where I very first started. And after trying to come to another meeting, I missed it or was canceled. And I got turned to this meeting. They said, this is probably where you'll want to be. I said, bet. So
I believe, but they have some kind of a residence council, right?
yeah, this is the second place. So if there's anything else that I could possibly go to, I'm all ears and more than welcome to show up there to speak my mind. But this is all I
They
know
have
as
to
of right
have
now.
a certain number of like low income or resident individuals on that, I think. There's some kind of a, parameter requirement like that.
Oh, you're talking about being on the board?
To be,
for that?
designated, to have some say in some, I don't know if it's a residence council or somebody there at
Okay.
BHA like that.
Okay, I like that. I like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Put my way on the inside.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
That's what we did.
Housing authority,
Okay.
which is kind of a HUD sub.
Yep.
Okay. But then you've also done stuff with hand.
Yeah,
haven't you,
hand
right?
is more like inspecting over landlords and things.
Fair enough. Cool.
Well, thanks.
Thank you guys very
Thank you.
much.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Appreciate it.
All right. The next item on our agenda is the discussion of the bylaws. So did everybody get a chance to at least look over them a little bit? Oh.
Yeah, I know,
Not
I kept
as,
having
not
glitches.
quite as closely as I.
Yeah, I kept having glitches whenever I was really digging into it. So, there's the example of the one that it's based on is in there. Status of women.
Yeah, okay, I see.
Um,
And then,
and so basically what we talked about, these were things that were prepared before but never got voted on or codified. And I think you were suggesting, Jason, that basically if we just get these instituted, then we can talk about amending them later.
I think that's what I was just gonna suggest, cause having some bylaws is better than no bylaws, and,
Especially if there's some restructuring of the commission from the council and stuff.
right. I
If
think,
we already have those kind of instituted,
I think that would be a wise,
even
path
though
forward.
might wanna do some changes later.
Absolutely.
Because I think it could maybe be loosened up in certain ways, but.
So it seems like on page 5 of the packet is the draft. That was probably from the previous meeting in July 2021.
Right.
And obviously we would need to change, the composition in section 1. And I think the terms needs to be either updated or more genericized, because in section 3, because obviously those dates have already passed. So we just need to say, like, shall just be for 2 years, expiring on January 31st.
Members or officers?
That's just members. Yeah, I know there was a section about officers. Where was that? Oh, that is on page 6. So that probably needs to be. Nope, that actually seems pretty clear and time abstracted. So just glancing at that, I would be generally okay with accepting the draft, but.
Well, we also don't have 11 members.
Well, that's why I said we would need
Right.
to change,
Certain.
section 1 and
Language.
section,
But we couldn't
Couldn't-
do that and approve it within this meeting, right?
Oh, yeah, and it's not an amendment if it's not real yet, so.
We couldn't just vote on,
We-
to change
that's-
something on the bylaws and pass it now?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm wondering. We kinda have to have another draft, right?
Yeah, and as I'm looking through it, there's a couple things that need to be changed. The other thing, there's chairperson and vice chairperson, but we've been operating with co-chairs.
Co-chairs.
Mhm.
Right, so there's not a hierarchy.
And so, is this the only version that has been worked on?
I believe so, yeah.
'Cause I thought there were a couple different things that Ash mentioned.
Do we have a Word document version of this?
I don't know that we do. We could ask.
Actually, it would
Or a
probably be in
Google
the
Doc.
Google Drive.
Yeah, Google
Oh,
Drive,
yeah.
okay, yeah, that could, I think,
Let
if
me,
we,
actually, I have that pulled up. Give me a second. Policies and bylaws. Yes, I see. Yeah, I see a draft bylaws modified August 2021 by the council Google user.
I think it would be efficient for all of us before the next meeting to comment our suggested changes and amendments on the Google document. And that way, at the next meeting, we can just go through each suggested change.
Mhm.
And then it's, then we have our version rather than eating up one night. We can do it when it's most convenient for us, and each person, their proposed amendment or lack thereof would be clean.
So
I like that.
it
But to go ahead and
looks-
vote it in now and then do it as amendments?
Yeah.
Well, and if we like have two co-chairs instead of a vice chair, or we change the number of people on the commission, that's not really an amendment, that's not something added on, that's really changing the bylaws.
Oh, that's how I would use the word amendment, is a change,
Yeah,
Oh,
amendment.
okay.
can-
rather than an addition.
Amendment can address various
Can add or subtract.
aspects.
We have staff wants to weigh in.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
You might want to double check with your staff liaison just to be sure, because if you're proposing changing the number of members in your bylaws, that's fair, but it's also dictated in city code.
Right.
And you might want to actually follow code first and then do
Right.
the bylaws to reflect that change, as opposed to doing your bylaws first, because then you'd have that very odd situation where your bylaws run contrary to your actual.
Code.
Yeah, that's,
Because
that's
well, the
gonna
code's
be
already
my other
been
questions
changed.
about how this does square up
It doesn't.
with, and I had presumed that I was gonna ask, but about the 11-member thing, I thought that was coming from the council trying to limit the numbers, but
I
I
think
guess
it's
not.
just copied from another commission directly.
Oh,
is my
oh, that's,
interpretation.
oh, okay.
And so that could have been what they're
Comporting with their code.
So that maybe
Um,
we should do it in the January meeting after fixing some of this.
Thinking about it, I think we should refrain from accepting these now, and I think we take this month to make, pull our
Yeah.
weight and
Get that,
check out the
get
code
that
and-
squared up with the
yeah.
liaisons.
get it shored up. Can Colleen also comment on the document?
I have
Or provide-
editing rights,
Yeah, I think.
which scares me a little bit.
Well, I don't think
I was
we
gonna
should
say,
just
if you could get in there and
willy-nilly,
edit it
I
right
think.
I
now.
see my blinking cursor in the
Throw it
document.
up.
I'm like,
You can
I'm
also
gonna
see
move
version
this.
history, so.
I know.
Oh, there we
it could
go.
be really
Okay.
different.
But still.
Yeah, I think we should put it on our next agenda and then just beg each and every one of us to look through it and.
Do you need the section of the code that refers to the organization of your commission? Do you all have it in your documents? for
Yeah.
I have it somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, if you could put it on the Google, though.
I can't, I don't have access to your drive, but I will tell you, so you can at least add
Yeah.
it, which is Bloomington Municipal Code 212.120. So 2.12.120 is the Community Advisory on Public Safety Commission. And I believe your membership is outlined in somewhere. I saw it. I've lost it again. Oh, there you go.
212.
Section C.
Bloomington.
Yes, I have the webpage up.
You got it. Cool.
You can pipe that around to everybody,
So
or it's,
I'm assuming it would be okay for
I can
you
also
to
do it after.
email this right now, the links to the two documents
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
for future. I will just do that now. And then
I can go ahead, I mean, I'm fine doing the heavy on making sure our laws comport with our municipal code. If other people wanna
yeah, that'll,
do other substantive or, I'm fine with checking that.
Thank you. Well, I think that's it for that. Unless anybody.
For the bylaws?
So what,
Yes.
so really,
one thing to check, to make sure that we're, within code for Bloomington Municipal Code, is that number of people, right, on the,
Well, I'll read over the code
Commission.
if there's any other mandates for our commission, and I'll just make sure that we're in compliance. I don't have it memorized, so I don't
And
know
that
what the
might be
mandates
the
are.
other, that might be the other thing to do is whether that would need to be, whether that code needs to be modified in any way
Right,
from our direction.
exactly.
Instead of just complying with it, whether there's any recommendations to give to council about it or.
I think that would be something good to discuss next time as well.
so, excuse me, I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Is there something in the Bloomington Municipal Code that refers directly to the CAPS Commission? Or is it
Yes.
just for all the?
Yes,
No, it's for our
Yes.
commission specifically.
Yes,
Is
all of the
Cami-
boards and commissions are defined either in local code or in state code. By the way, Clerk Bolden, if you're trying to catch my attention. But, so, yes, CAPS Commission was actually just formed in the last 4 years through an ordinance that was passed in council, and it outlays what your mission, what your purpose is, what you're supposed to do, and the terms of, dates in terms of your appointments, and then who should achieve priority in terms of serving on the commission as well.
Okay.
So, and outlines your powers and duties, all those things. If you want to, your staff, like council staff, formally. So if you actually want to recommend some changes to the municipal code, your staff can take them to the council. Changing the code can be, I mean, part of it depends on their workload. So you can see changes done rather quickly, or they can take much longer. It really depends on where it falls on the council's list of pending legislation. Is that helpful?
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Any other comments or questions?
So we'll clean it up, table it, and hopefully pass it at the next meeting.
I just sent the email, so you should.
Awesome. And if you don't have any comments for changes, you can comment to say no comments.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Cool. So we can move on to the next item, which is collaboration with city and board officials. And so this was talking about, kind of touching on how in our outreach for preparing our major report, we did that kind of outreach, and then in the interim, the committee looking at commission and board processes was formed by the council to kind of standardize that, and we had requested that because we got, and that's part of what we reported on in our annual report, was that's during the Hamilton administration, the way that was set up was there wasn't a standard, and so we asked for that to kind of be standardized.
Standard on interactions between bodies?
Right, and so when we reached out to different boards and commissions, we got different ways that was handled. We asked that our report be distributed ahead of time, and sometimes liaisons didn't do that. So sometimes we were presenting everything right away, and it ate up all the time. So we don't have any planned outreach right now, but yes.
Yes, please, Clerk Bolden.
I am so sorry.
Yeah.
But it might be helpful to know that there is a new staff member directly over boards and commissions who's actually housed in the clerk's office. So that is the Deputy Clerk of Communications and Outreach, Jennifer Crossley. And so if you actually want to have those communications and start talking about standardizing, I would suggest that you set up a meeting with her.
Awesome.
And I'm gonna stop talking.
No, that's.
Please don't.
Yes.
And that was all in relation to that report?
Yeah, initially in relation to the report, but we assumed that we'd want to do more outreach because from that, we determined that, as you say, like sometimes it's good if commissions can work together on shared things. So we wanted to work out the details before we needed to do that outreach. So we can reach out to Jennifer Crossley.
And like, what would be the restrictions or the differences? You were saying about whether the information would be shared completely amongst the other bodies?
Yeah, how it could be shared, or what constraints there are. Because one of the pushbacks we got was that
It shouldn't be probably commission and board member to the board members, but through the staff.
right. And I guess it depends on the nature of the work that we're doing. Like, obviously, if we were trying to undermine the city and reach out to other boards to do that, probably should be resisted, maybe. But we can clarify that in a meeting.
Well, but then when you have like a member from another board or commission just come to a meeting and speak, that's not mediated by the staff.
Yeah.
So I mean, cause, yeah, I got pushed back at a point about sending things, and they were like, no, send it to staff and we will send it, which means they will decide whether to send it, not
Mhm.
just that they will send it.
Yeah.
And the idea of, yeah, overwhelming the, I think it was more about officials less than other boards or commission members, other staff and officials, but.
Yeah, but we can work that out. Does anybody want to do the outreach to Jennifer Crossley?
Yeah, sure. Like physically email her?
Yeah, and maybe set up a meeting. And the way we were doing general outreach last time was at least two of us in a meeting, so that we get multiple perspectives, so the burden doesn't fall on one person to do the work for the entire commission.
And that's as far as directly attending the other bodies' meetings?
Well, at first it would be reaching out and requesting a meeting with Jennifer Crossley to talk about how outreach is done.
Yeah, but then you're saying two people going to another body's meeting?
Right. Or like, in the summer, we did outreach for the like free speech stuff, and so it was multiple people meeting with, say the chief of police, or the mayor when we talked about the stuff that we reported on.
Well, it's just that like I'm on the Sustainability Commission on Sustainability as well.
Yep.
And so my thought was just to be sharing between the two as I attend anything that may relate to the mission or the activities of the other,
Yeah.
without going through any of that.
Well, that could work. So we're connected to one other commission.
Yeah, because to me, again, there is a kind of a housing equity economic component with the Commission on Sustainability, which kind of differentiates it from just the Environmental Commission,
Right.
which relates to this marginalized populations and mission here. So I think there's some ways that what we've done is start forming working groups. It's not necessarily a committee thing like you talked about, but a working group around an issue, which could kind of become a committee, I guess.
Right.
And so I think if we establish some kind of a working group working toward some possible collaborative project or report,
Yeah.
I think would be
And that's how we've been doing it. We call it. The frame is a special committee. So it was the special committee on campus protest, I think it was, and then that dissolves after that work is done.
and so have you done anything like that with another board or commission?
No, because the clarification came out after we did the outreach, and we did have a special committee for doing outreach for the report.
So you're saying outreach a lot, and it sounds like a term of art. Can you define what you mean by, like, what if you
Yeah.
ordered me to engage in outreach, what would you expect that I would do?
Yeah. So, outreach to a board would be, so I'm going to anchor it in the example of the report. So we had, as the special committee, we came up with a list of questions to standardize the questions we were asking across boards, and then people volunteered to do outreach to a board to ask those questions and report back.
You said outreach again.
Yeah.
In defining
Oh.
outreach.
So the outreach is
Outreach.
asking the questions
Okay.
and reporting
you.
back.
Or just
Yes.
to the
Then absolutely,
Well,
I
just
can
going
It's
perform
out-
outreach.
It's out because it's outside of district.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I like, lessons in nomenclature. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah. But outside of boards and commissions, we also did outreach by asking a standardized set of questions to marginalized groups. So we went to like Community Kitchen and asked for lived experience of community members and things like that.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Do we still have those questions?
Yeah, they're in I think the end of that report.
Sick me on them. Yeah.
Yeah. And we could pick that up.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that seemingly could be a useful regular thing.
Yeah.
Surveys, gathering statistics from those.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Both with other boards and commissions and just,
Yeah, well, that's one of the main
Community
things we
groups.
could share with the other
right,
boards and commissions, the findings from surveying certain populations.
of the public. Yeah.
Right. So if we
I
want
like
to
that.
pick something up like a housing advocacy.
Yeah, because the one part is asking questions of the other board stuff, but then the other side of it is presenting
Reporting
to
back.
them
Yeah.
about what we're doing or trying to do or.
So that's
looking
the
into.
the other thing when we finalized the report. Another leg of outreach was taking the report to the other commissions, and that's what we wanted distributed ahead of time. Was here's the draft. Where do you see your board or commission's work fitting in here, and then opening that discussion.
And is the idea also that it's a unified message that's presented rather than that particular member's portrayal?
Yeah. So that's why we met and also had two people reaching out, and we had a script of what points we wanted to cover,
And that was pre-approved by the commission?
by the special committee.
By the committee.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Cammie. I was like, am I the only one who remembers
yeah.
this? But Cammie was involved in the process. It was Cammie and I and Najla, and it was just us.
Hazel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was pre-approved for each agency or organization that we talked to. It was specific information for those groups was outlined for them. We talked about everything, but we highlighted specific information for the groups that we talked to that related to their organization.
So there was some wiggle room, not just the party line from our sector?
Right. It wasn't a flat script. It was tailored or targeted outreach to.
But I mean also some leeway on just that person's responses to those.
Yeah.
It was all pre-approved beforehand. We didn't go in and just say whatever we wanted. It was discussed beforehand before we went to do the outreach. It was already talked about ahead of time so that somebody didn't just go in and say what their own personal views were. It was what our commission as a whole agreed on to represent of our commission. Like from our research. It wasn't just one person that went off and said, well, this is my opinion about this. We went based off of what the research we discovered said. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes.
But getting to who Aaron would outreach to initially, was that also
Jennifer Crossley,
yeah.
but I don't think it was back in the day. I think she's new.
But was that also a type of meeting where there would be two of us going with that as well?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I could go with you on that if you wanted to.
To meet with Crossley?
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
I'll email her
We got
tomorrow. I'll
like
copy
that's
her.
our first step for anything. So we should get another person in there for that. So
Yeah. Then maybe come up with a set of questions and we could help brainstorm them,
That would be
like
wonderful.
things that we want to know.
Much appreciated.
Another working document. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. All right, I think that really covers the outreach, community engagement aspect. Was thinking about, we wanted to keep those ongoing outreach to keep using it.
Now that I know what we're
Okay,
you know,
now
the
it's-
term of art, because it sounded like outreach with a capital O instead of layman's outreach.
Oh.
What do you mean, like promotions or?
No, I just mean when you use a word, like it's defined in a certain way, a specific set of behaviors rather than outreach as you might find in Webster's English dictionary. Like how
So
when
the-
you say outreach, you're talking about using a specific set of questions to different groups, which is not how the layperson might define outreach.
Right.
So it's a term of
I
art
think
in
it's
this.
looking for collaboration,
Right.
reaching out to people to.
Well,
Oh, yeah, I think that's the layman's understanding,
Well,
but that's
then
not how
just-
we've been using it.
Then there's just the outreach
Yeah.
to the public,
Right.
making them aware that we exist and what we're about, right?
Although this would be the more targeted, so going to places like Community Kitchen and having a purpose for it. So not just opening up a table and saying, we're the community advisory and public safety, come talk to us. But we're interested in your lived experience, and we're specifically looking into, say we took up that housing issue, or the blacked out police cars. We could be asking a set of questions. So it's talking to a specific segment of the community, getting their perspective.
I think
So-
we should talk to the cops, and we should talk to the people who interact with the cops. Those are, one group is easily defined.
And would it pay to talk to Bloomington cops versus IU cops? And maybe the policy office at
Well, and then
IU?
the sheriff's department, and then the state police, and then the secret feds that we have to.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, but you mean to pull the,
I think it'd be
if we're
interesting
pull
going
the
to
policy
see
from the IU police?
Yeah, I
There
think
must
it would.
be, there must be a representative, someone who we would go to talk to.
Yeah, well, there's another commission, it's
No.
called public safety.
Not the chief.
That's kind of our parallel
Well, we can
And they would-
perform outreach.
And
yeah. Well,
that-
I would think that we would be having some interaction with them.
And they would want the opportunity to explain their policies and why.
I mean,
They
I
do
think
what they do.
we can get copies of all their policies.
Yeah, well, they record their meetings.
Oh, I'm talking about the police departments.
Yeah, but I mean, the Public Safety Commission is kind of,
The Board of Public Safety.
yeah, Board of Public Safety.
Yeah.
Yeah, board. Would kind of be some of those heads, I would think.
Yeah. And I guess that's where, under this item, is where I wanted to introduce whether we think, so the outreach committee is still in existence. I think Cammie, you're on that with me, right? And it's just,
Yeah.
and Todd, was Todd officially on there, or was he just? Do you remember if he just attended our meeting?
I don't know if he joined or said that he might be able to help if we needed something, but he couldn't commit full-time. It was something like that, I think. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. But I think that might be a good way of operating. So we take, because we would take an item like outreaching about cops and take it to that committee, and we could establish how that is done, and they bring it back here, if that makes sense, in terms of process.
Oh, yeah, with a special committee, you're
Right.
saying?
Right. except the research committee is a full committee, so it's not project oriented,
Right.
but process.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that way of doing these individual outreach efforts.
Yeah. Cool. So we can keep that.
Well, this visit to the Stride Center is kind of another form of that.
Right.
Community engagement part.
Oh, right.
That would be-
And something that I was paying attention to when I first joined the commission is that it seemed like anytime somebody came up with an idea that the research committee had to take ownership. But I think we've shifted more towards, so the Stride Center visit doesn't have to be the research committee. It can be the full commission and anybody who wants to come. And then if we came up with a project that we wanted to assign to the research committee, then we could. But I suppose we can consider that.
do we still have a research committee?
Yes, and so currently it's just Cammie and I.
Okay.
And then our policy was if somebody wanted to join, then you just attend a meeting and we vote you on. Because I think there's still quorum rules for that.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
As in the whole commission votes them, or are you talking about the committee votes?
The committee. Yeah.
So
the
anytime we
research
have,
committee. Oh,
just so
okay.
I can, because I'm still new here.
Yeah.
Anytime we have any activity, like targeted activity such as outreach or research, rather than the whole commission fighting over the turkey, it's just the committee that does that activity. So if we all decide on a topic that we need researched, the research committee automatically is like, we're gonna do this. Is that the point of a committee or the?
Yeah, well, so if we decide we want to do something and assign it to the committee, then it is the committee's work. But if we decide we want to do something that it's not their, so like visiting the Stride Center.
Right.
Right.
I'm just thinking it, the research popped in there.
Or-
It's like,
Right.
Finding out information to clarify what we need for the bylaws. That's another
bylaws, special
sort
committee,
of research.
task force, X-force.
Yeah. So I mean, kind of
Which now consists of.
working group is still the way I kind of think of it.
Yeah.
So you got, Nicole got something there?
So it's gonna be quiet.
And we said you didn't have
Your
to.
face tells so much more.
I have a really loud face, y'all.
That, I've never heard that expression.
Yes.
And I'm
Except
gonna
it's
remember
so
that.
accurate, right?
Yeah.
Very expressive.
Hold it
you
down
know,
over there.
yeah,
It's from your heart.
that is something I've internally appreciated about you, but I'm glad I can say it out loud. I appreciate your loud face.
Do you play poker?
Oh,
Oh.
It's terrible, I can, like, you know. Yeah, no.
And you probably should.
Poker face.
All right. Anything else on outreach and community engagement? Doesn't have to be.
We've really,
Yeah. Well, we'll keep it ongoing.
Well, just like if we did prepare something for that Environmental Research Institute event, I guess that would kind of have to go through, or create a committee for it.
Yeah, we could do a special committee. I think that would be the best way to do it. That way we're planning and doing it collectively, and we have something to bring back. And especially like when we report on what we've done, so our next, looking forward, a whole year to our next annual report, we can say we formed this and did this outreach and did this collaborative effort to strengthen the work of the city, right?
Yeah.
So it looks better.
Good idea to,
Yeah.
be installing and recording that with mind toward the next report, yeah,
Absolutely.
instead of just kind of doing it.
And it's good process.
Documenting every part of it.
Yeah. So the next item is housing advocacy concerns discussion. So this is just to open it. Yeah. So beyond our guest, thinking also about the Joe Davis thing. And so when I found, so I distributed the few things that I found, right? It was just a couple of news reports and the Reddit thread. And I think that
Haven't had any interaction with Joe Davis?
was that
Haven't had any
you
interaction
haven't
with Joe?
directly.
Not in any official capacity, but he is my neighbor.
Oh,
Okay.
there you go. I actually, so I volunteer at Shalom, and one day he came in and he was like, it was ahead of the abatement thing, but he was trying to push for resistance to, I think, the convention center expansion
Yeah,
stuff.
well, he ran for office, and I think that kind of became one of his.
Major things, right? And so like he's very active. But something that there's a couple things that I think we could take up that the community was discussing around his abatement, which is one, mental health issues, right? It seemed like a lot of people were saying he has mental health issues. He's a hoarder, which is based in OCD, which is a mental health issue, right? And so that's one of the things that we've continued to push for is more citywide efforts, right?
Yeah, and Han has done that kind of thing for other situations before it reached the abatement. They connected them with Centerstone or something like that. I've seen them testify about that before the council and stuff, of like, we're not gonna go all there yet. We're gonna get the guy help or whatever. But as far as I know, I don't know whether any of that was ever tried with Joe Davis's case.
And that, I believe, was what Colleen was suggesting us trying to research, going down that research hole to
Yeah,
find
and
out
whether
what
there
it
was like, what is it, community justice and mediation, CJAM
Yeah.
involvement or anything like that. Then another thing is just the abatement being hiring a crew to come and take everything and throw it away.
Yeah.
Rather than, especially what he did and had, was collected building materials. We have the Habitat Restore.
Yeah.
Would have been a better repository than a
To be
dumpster.
sustainable, yeah.
You know,
Especially the
if it does get, and it goes to that level, then it's almost like that's kind of, we're throwing it away. You know what I mean? Like it's.
Well, because they have defined it as trash.
Yeah,
or
well,
garbage.
that's part of it. Yeah, they call it,
So-
you can call anything garbage.
Right. No, and this will probably be part of the research, but I think like a lot of the, and I could be corrected, but I mean a lot of the abatement movement was from the Board of Public Works, which seems anecdotally, I know that there are 3 members, but I typically only see 2 attending at any time, which is, I don't know. Speaking personally for me, that just seems like a lot of power to hold in just a few people's hands for that.
Well, in that language that was used, it's vague, that garbage language.
But to keep important, circling back to your restore thing, that then defines that as no longer garbage if you have taken that stuff away from a person's property and then put it to be resold. Which I believe he did report, I don't remember what meeting it was Board of Public Works, where he made a statement that he went and bought some of those materials back and wanted the Board of Public Works to know that.
Are you saying that some of it did end up there?
I don't know how he bought, or where he
Or
bought
go
it
to
back,
the,
but
did
he
it go to the
reported,
dump?
maybe, or the scrap works, or yeah, someplace like that. Yeah, you would have to refer to the actual CAPS recording of that.
Well, Jamie Scholl, who's on the Commission on Sustainability with me, she was zeroing in on the one component of how that language is, could technically outlaw composting
Yeah.
in one's yard. if you wanted to apply it that way.
Yeah.
And so the broader frame this fits into that we've talked about, a previous member of the commission was talking about procedural equity, right? So that it's not just pick and choose. So like our guest was talking about, why did they target him?
Selective enforcement, yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And so like, so that we're not just talking about Joe Davis, but using Joe Davis as a case study.
Yeah.
This highlights procedural equity. What if somebody else is struggling or neighbors making
There are
complaints?
plenty of other properties in town that are in worse condition,
Right.
but because their direct neighbors haven't flagged them, they've been left alone.
Yeah. Yeah. And to play devil's advocate or angel's advocate, right? On the side of the city, some people talked about how like there had been various warnings, and he had been delaying things, and it was like delayed for a year, and somebody made the point like, if I had it delayed for a year, I would have figured things out, how to get things moved out. But of course, that's thinking about the constraints of resources, right? Like if I was overwhelmed by all the building materials I had, I don't know how I would do it unless I had somebody to help me, right? And so I think one thing that we could do is advocate for resources, right? So if somebody ends up in a situation like this where they need help to take care of things, that it's made apparent what kind of resources that they have.
Project management.
Right.
Well, it's some other kind of mediating body to come in and deal with or ameliorate that. But it's, obviously there's issues and problems on his side.
Yeah.
And issues and problems on the city side.
Mm.
But it didn't, like, I didn't go directly inspect, but from the various pictures and situations, videos and stuff I saw, especially after he had made some tidying and, sprucing stuff up. Like, I remember at one point in a public works meeting early on, they were looking at pictures and they were like, there's a pile of hats. Like, really? Really? You're zeroing in? There's a pile of hats. We don't want to look at this stack of hats.
Yeah.
Like, so, it's such a leeway of discretion of what they want to have a problem with.
Right.
It seems like, there needs to be some clarification in those statutes.
Yeah.
And a more of a recourse for the person to define their side of it there, and if that can be held up, that yes, these are building materials, yes, he is a builder, then that's not just somebody's got a pile of stuff,
Right.
and like the thing is predicated on one having enough money to have storage units,
Yeah.
Sounds like a constitutional issue.
and and having money to just go buy stuff at Lowe's when you want to do something.
Mm.
So it's all built against one being frugal and all of that environmental ethic that used to be a standard thing, especially in this town, 60s, 70s and stuff. Like, and through the Depression and things, the people that lived through the Depression,
Yeah.
you keep a thing until it's needed by you or someone else.
Right.
And unless it's an actual fire hazard, unless it's the rodent thing and stuff, I don't think they could really show that. I mean, anything can be set on fire.
Right.
Does that mean everything sitting around is a fire hazard?
Yeah, and that's the other thing I wanted to draw out, and because you talked about clarifying terms, right? So if we have something ambiguous like garbage that could be interpreted, this could be garbage, right? But it's my phone. It's my phone. I use it. Like he was saying stuff like that. Something else people were talking about that we're constantly calling out as the Community Advisory on Public Safety is safety, right? And so that's one of the things we asked in our outreach about safety And in the early stage of outreach, we went to different cities and looked at stuff. And I went to Denver to look at their program. And I heard a community organizer, and the quote has always stuck with me. He said, "We have to be careful not to confuse safety with comfort," right? And so when people say, like, "I don't like that pile of hats," that's not a safety hazard. Somebody in the Reddit thread made a comparison to another hoarding situation where they had a bunch of cats, and the cats had defecated in the house so much that they wouldn't go there, and so they would jump over the neighbor's fence and defecate in their yard, right? And so, like, that's an actual safety hazard, or that's an unsafe.
Well, that's getting more toward disease situations.
Right. But so to define it by something like that, where it is an actual hazard, versus like everything's flammable, right? So everything could
And
be
also,
a
as far as
hazard.
alternative solutions with this kind of, some kind of a mediational viewpoint, I said it would have cost less for the city to build him a fence so the neighbors don't have to look at it.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
How much would that cost? And
Right.
and then, unless you want to go looking in there, if you don't want to, firstly, if you don't want to see it, turn your head.
Well, we're
But-
Americans, we love telling other people how to live.
Right.
Well, and the real thing is he had the audacity of living like he's in the county when he's in the city.
Yeah.
Right.
Because this stuff is just, the county's like, that's your business.
Right.
Yeah, we hate it every time we drive by, but again, it's like, yeah, make it art or something. You know, like, put up a fence and hang your hubcaps, something.
Yeah. I mean, he did during the pandemic. He had the Smiley Museum
Oh, nice.
and displayed this kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. That's how I originally
You mean
found out
there?
about him.
There?
Yeah. And well, because the beam on the top of his house says smile, right?
Oh, yeah.
So,
Well, I think that was kind of the initial thing, was that it had been burnt, and that he left that facade all burnt. While he's talking about, I'm working on it, I'm working on it, I'm working on it.
Yeah.
I think a big thing that would have cut it off is if he had just redid that facade first thing. And that's kind of the initial, every time people would stop at the intersection.
Yeah.
Still?
right.
But that gets into his particular neurosis.
Yeah. So I suppose as we continue to talk about like housing advocacy and addressing our
Well, and then the final component that deals with where that hits is that he could be made homeless by all the fines and the money and the legal process. That could affect his mortgage payments.
right.
And I've seen a situation with somebody that, yeah, it was a long process. It was sort of starting to get handled, but it wasn't there yet, but they had, at the end of a process. So they told the landlady, we're gonna come in, abate, throw this all in the dumpster and charge you thousands of dollars. So up until then, for years, the landlady was fine with the tenant. As soon as they said that, she goes, oh, you're evicted. As soon as she filed that eviction, that person was not rentable.
Yeah.
So that, we had to get things legally expunged, taken offline. It was a long process. She only had so much time with her Section 8 voucher in process, and how long it took in the courts. We had to get her into virtual systems of being able to sign documents electronically and attend a virtual hearing. First hearing is virtual. This is an elderly person that's not oriented with this stuff. So we had to get in there and be completely advocates at all these steps of the way to triage what essentially situation didn't have to become that.
Right.
You know, that it shouldn't have never had to been an eviction. We finally got it all pulled down the very day that we couldn't wait any longer and had to apply for the next place. And I've dealt with other clients and things, and to know that if there's anything like that on your record, the places you apply to say, well, until that's cleared up,
Right.
which makes you unrentable, which would have had her being, you know, a screaming bag lady on the corner, if not a complete concerted triage situation for 2 months straight of fixing that. So like, you know, I mean, does all kinds of good things and has good programs and things, but on a certain level, there's also these unintended consequences when they decide to give up and say,
Right.
and again, that was just them saying something to the landlady about what they were gonna do. Changed the perspective of the landlady.
Yeah. So I think for our part, we can focus on that procedural equity to continue to talk about how we can advocate for that for our guests, right? But then also for people who, so public housing and private housing are different things.
Well, and then, like we said, to do with the actual language of the garbage and the ordinance and stuff, and then with actual departments, as far as our making recommendations to the city
Yeah.
on how they could do things procedurally differently, or at least add another stage or two of something.
Yeah. So I think at one point we had an actual committee focusing on housing, but is this something that we want to assign to the research committee? Do we want to form a special committee for housing?
I'd be interested in starting a housing committee,
Okay.
because there was also a housing report, housing component of your report, was it?
Right.
And that was one of the other things that they talked about, the systemic situation here, that, that having a few low-income units per development as it comes in and things like that isn't tackling the actual level of need,
Yeah.
and that there needs to be a concerted, devoted development to addressing this population that's still not getting into this other kind of piecemeal development style.
Yeah.
And that was, I was
Interesting.
glad to see that was in the report,
Yeah.
because that's what I've been saying and advocating for some time. That's the first time I've seen anybody else kind of come to that same conclusion, because everything else systemically is, we're doing it, but it's still leaving all kinds of people in the wind.
And just to be aware of time, I know
Yeah.
we're scheduled until 5:30, and I don't know if there's a meeting after this, or I don't know how that works for this committee.
Yeah. Well, thanks for pointing that out.
No, I didn't know.
And then
That was our
the,
last item, anyway.
yeah,
Right.
the Homewell development, Hopewell development that's happening, you know, that's a different body that's formed by the city, formed a nonprofit,
Yeah.
this thing, and bought it, and they've been creeping more toward workforce housing instead of low income. So it's kind of creeping up, and they're saying because of how much they've spent on it, it seems to be kind of creeping away from its economic accessibility. So I don't know if there's some way we could
Tap into
work
that.
to shape that in a little more equitable direction.
Yeah.
Have a little more accessibility there.
What I guess we can do is form that housing committee, and then after the meeting I can send out an email to see who would be interested in being on the research or housing committees, and then we can figure out a time that they can meet, because we have to inform the city, and that has to be noticed for open door laws, and so we have to meet here.
When we form a committee and the committee meetings?
Right. But I guess the first move is that we have to make an official vote on forming the housing committee. So.
I move we form a housing committee.
Seconded.
All right. So I think we have to do voice vote. So I say yay.
Yes.
Good.
Aye.
Aye.
Tammy?
Yeah.
Awesome. So that is formed. All right. And I will make sure to send out an email about scheduling time for both of those.
Yeah, and then there's that issue of the open door laws and communicating in email. It's fine to have our back and forths in email,
Yes.
but when does something constitute
Well,
a
so
critical mass of
if it's we can't meet asynchronously without having an open meeting. Technically, our emails the emails that we send talking about our business could be FOIA'd, right? So even though we don't have to actively share them, they are searchable, or they could be requested.
I would think anything except a vote.
Yeah.
And there is some quorum if a number of us go to other meetings.
Right.
Well, with the Commission on Sustainability, they pulled down their Google Drive situation, and they said that everybody can't be in that Google Drive at the same time. You know what I'm talking about here? That if multiple members of the commission are in there and working on, I don't know if it's a document or documents at the same time, that is
Synchronously?
constituting a
Yes.
meeting.
I recall our non-quorum meeting that was mentioned, that people would make comments in the
That's-
Google Doc, and that effectively was a behind
And that's
closed doors
technically a
meeting.
violation of the open door law.
Yeah. I recall that now. Thanks. Well, and that's why when I sent that email out about the Google Doc, I did mention
We'll have to
our
give
staff
heads up.
person to.
I'm going in from 3 to 4, everybody stay out.
Right. Or you pop in and somebody's in there. Random panda. Nope, gotta get out.
I could say a nerdy solution, but it would be very nerdy, so don't.
Yeah.
Don't want me though.
All right, so we just have any topics suggestions for future agendas? I think we have some good items.
Bylaws.
Bylaws. Next time.
Subcommittee or
So actually something like, making sure that our bylaws are in sync with the Bloomington Code, you would do that, we'd have to do that by email so that we could be ready to vote at the next meeting.
oh yeah, that's what I meant. Like we have the Google Drive that we all have access to, so we can all see each other's comments on it, and thus we would all be prepared to discuss the comments at the next meeting.
Okay.
That's what I had
And
in mind.
yeah, having that as an agenda item.
Right.
Cool. Any-
Bylaws, and then
How would the subcommittees get people in?
yeah,
That.
subcommittees divvying up tasks and what we want our scripts to be. And hopefully I will have a report by then on a meeting with Jennifer Crossley.
And
That being the
Yeah.
outreach, outreach specifications or something there.
Yeah.
We could call that one.
Yeah. And Clerk Bolden, what is Jennifer's official title? Do you know?
Deputy Clerk of Communications, or no, you know what, I'm lying. It's Deputy Clerk, Communications and Outreach, and I'm actually blinking whether it's of or for, but I mean, that's a very small distinction in the grand scheme of things.
Fair enough, yeah.
Just right here is Deputy Clerk Crossley, I mean, that'll also
Okay.
cover it.
There we go.
Then you don't have to worry about the CNF part.
Outreach, okay.
It's like affect and affect.
That's actually a
Think
huge
about
grammatical
that.
difference.
Yeah.
All right, that is a good amount of items.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
Awesome. All right, well, there's nothing else. I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. Third.
And that's adjourned.
All right.
Thanks, team.